When it comes to in-flight wining and dining, one of the leaders in the sky is Emirates. Let's find out now a few secrets to success with the head of in-flight catering, Joost Heemeyer. All right, Joost, thanks so much for your time. We're here in one of your storage facilities for Emirates that holds some of the most amazing wines in the world, and this is only a few days worth of stock for you, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. If you just look behind me, this is one aisle out of 9, and that holds about a week worth of stock. So we turn over a lot of wine in a very short period of time.
What I find impressive about Emirates at the moment is the quality of the wine. You know, your Montrachets and Margots and Cloudy Bays, you're really upping the ante from an onboard wine perspective.
It's not something we've just started doing. You know, we made a decision 15 years ago to really develop a very high-end wine program, but also to start buying wines early. So the difference between other airlines and ourselves is that we like to keep our own hand on how we buy the wine, when we buy the wine, how long we store the wine. And some of the wines that we're drinking today we bought 15 years ago, so they've been maturing in our cellars for a very long time, and when they're at their peak we bring them to market.
It's also at a time, I think, where a lot of airlines are toning back the quality of the wine on board, and you're maintaining a very high quality of wine on board.
James, I can't comment on what other airlines do. I do know that when Tim Clark decided to take a much more proactive role in how we buy wine and the relationships we develop with the wine growers, not just in France, but we buy wines from 12 different wine producing countries. We know most of the growers, we have personal relationships with them, so it's also about their pride to be on our aircraft. And you know, when you fly business and first, the wine growers really like to see their wines because it is the clientele that can afford to buy those wines. And yes, what we do as part of that value proposition is to give people wines that are going like, whoa, I mean, you know, I'd buy that for my 25th wedding anniversary. And people can really equate that value in the bottle also to the price that they paid for their seat.
You're keeping things very bespoke as well, like you were when you were at Wolgan Valley. You were procuring local wines there and small batches and parcels of wines. You're also procuring small parcels of wines for the airline now. It's a similar concept, isn't it?
Yeah, it is similar. And we do the same with food, but just to give you an idea, we currently fly 5 different wine lists every day around the world. On average, about 75 wines go to different parts of the world. So we really make our wine list bespoke to the areas we fly into, and the volumes are quite amazing. Annually, anywhere between 200 and 300 wines we channel through our wine lists.
That's quite a lot of different variations for an airline, but it's also obviously showing how much diversity you do have when it comes to buying wine, doesn't it?
It's not just the diversity, it's also an understanding of our passenger profile and the care we put into our overall food and beverage offering. And it's fun, you know, it's fun to buy smaller parcels, knowing that you can put them on for a short amount of time on a particular sector. Sometimes we even just go city specific. So we'll, you know, people in Portugal are really going to like this wine because you can't get it anywhere else. And I think that is the fun too. We sometimes release wines that are 10, 12, 15 years old, and people are going, it is impossible for me to even get these wines because we bought them and kept them for so long, and then people are going, that is truly spectacular.
Like you said, it comes back to that wine program, doesn't it, 15 years ago, and in knowing at the time of exactly what kind of wine you'd want to be serving in 15 years, you're thinking a long way ahead.
Yeah, and it's being able to taste those wines when they're really, really young, and then commit to them and put them to storage. So in our cellars in France, where we have main storage facilities in Burgundy as well as in Bordeaux, we're currently keeping well over 7.5 million bottles of wine. And some of them will, you know, you'll see on board in the next year or so, but some of them will take 10, 12 years before we actually see them. So it's also having that level of patience, and it's great value for our passengers.
We've also seen the champagne stay on a very high level on board Emirates in those 15 years as well. Obviously, you've got Dom Perignon available for first class, and Moet and Veuve Clicquot. You've got some great brands on board.
Yeah, the relationship that we've developed with Dom Perignon. I mean, Dom Perignon and Emirates first class are synonymous, right? That people have come to expect that, and over time we've become their #1 client. We are their most important trading partner between Emirates and Dom Perignon. And we're doing some fun stuff with them, not just the vintage selection that they bring on board, but every year we get a batch of Dom Pérignon P2 or the very, very rare Dom Pérignon Rosé, both of them will feature this year on First Class. And this year we'll actually change our vintage from 2009 back to 2008, the first time that a champagne house has ever done that. 2008 will be an amazing vintage for champagne, and as far as Dom Pérignon goes, we have an airline exclusive. So for the next 12 months, Emirates will be the only airline being able to serve the 2008 Dom.
And when it comes to food, obviously the most important thing there is having great food alongside great wine, and you've got a very great, again, thinking more bespoke about when you are or looking at your procuring some of your food on board too, aren't you?
Yeah, we don't want to be a cookie cutter company. So from the Middle East here, from our hub in Dubai, where we serve 65% of our 110 million meals we served last year alone. Of course, we celebrate Arabic generosity and the cuisine of the Middle East and the cuisine, of course, of the Gulf in particular. Combined with an international flavor, but then from our what we call outstations, whether that is Phuket or Amsterdam or Orlando, we challenge our chefs there to come up with regional and seasonal dishes. So, as an example, in a couple of weeks, flying to and from the Netherlands, Germany, France, and Belgium, we will see white asparagus, which are in season, and that'll be great. Followed in June more to our British, we do a lot of it with strawberries, with Wimbledon coming up, and then we do all the big festive periods. I mean, we've got Ramadan coming here in the Middle East, so we pay attention to that. We do most of the Easter coming, of course, with hot cross buns flying and so on. It keeps us busy.
Very famous for your Christmas menus on Emirates, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, Christmas, we're already planning, it's only April now, we were already planning for Christmas later on this year, and we get huge response, and that is in every class, James. We don't just feature and focus business and first, but 70% of my business is economy class driven. So food and wine and seasonal and regional food feature heavily in all of our classes.
Obviously, you're taking that luxury restaurant experience from the ground to the sky, and it's obviously very important to maintain that quality, isn't it? I think as you go forward as well.
Yeah, the food and the dining experience, I still believe, is a very important part of your journey. And at Emirates, we will never ever skimp on that. It is we're an aspirational airline. Passengers have very high expectations when they travel with us, and food is important. But you have to realize, of course, you're in a limited space. I mean, also we're in a big aluminium cigar, so space comes at a premium. There's only so much you can do. I mean, we've got ovens, and there's a lot of elements in your journey that we cannot control.
You're bringing back the glamour of flying firmly, because you look back at all those old photos from the 60s and 70s of the full, like the carving of the meat in the aisle and that kind of thing. You're also doing it through your cocktail list. The onboard cocktail list is spectacular.
Yeah, well, we're not at the point yet that we start carving meats on board, but when you're traveling in first class, we have dedicated operators that will plate your meal, and we of course we're famous in first class for our caviar and all the condiments that go with it. And you're right, we follow the changing trends in what people drink around the world, and at the moment it is all about cocktails, right? And all the old flavors like Manhattans and Negronis and old fashions. So when you're lucky enough to travel business class on an A380, that bar is very, very well visited, and our lounge operators there are trained in recreating those cocktails. So we've got some spectacular brands that we use there as well, very premium brands, and I'll give you a bit of a preview of that a bit later. But yeah, welcome aboard, I'd say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Anytime. Thanks, James.